Managing Those Pennies, brought to you with the good wishes of Republic Bank. We're the one for you.
So, of course, that means it's time for us to chat with someone who can give us the advice, the expert advice that we need. So it's your opportunity again. The holidays mean people spend a little bit more. Sometimes people take the opportunity to invest, get a loan, and see what they can do. We have been talking with you over the past few weeks about how to do that more responsibly. So let me say good morning to Crystal Howell. She is a chartered professional accountant and certified internal auditor. Good morning.
Good morning, ladies.
I should say good morning, Crystal Claus. So today, what angle are we approaching from?
We're going to be wrapping up the loan series, but we wanted to give an overview of everything we've been discussing for the past few weeks and to end off with some of the things that you have to bear in mind when you're taking a loan.
Okay.
So we would have ended off last week talking about the advantages of getting a loan, but we would have to make sure we add caution and educate persons about some of the disadvantages. So we would be well aware there is an interest rate. So if you're borrowing from a financial institution, that usually comes along with it. Most people are not fortunate to be able to have, say, a relative to be able to lend them the money interest-free, and some persons are fortunate to have a low interest rate, but many times the interest rate is something persons don't think about because when they hear the monthly amount, "Oh, that sounds like something I can afford," you get your higher purchase, and it says, you know, low weekly payments of $50, and it sounds very easy to pay back, but when you look at the intrinsic costs because of the interest rate, it's actually a lot more expensive in the long run because you add it up and you realize this item that costs $200, you're paying back $500 at the end of the term. So looking at the interest rate is something people need to pay attention to.
Right.
And we spoke at length about the additional fees, the ones that would be in the contract. You must read your contract.
And most people don't do that.
No.
You know this.
They just sign.
It's
They
like, if
sign.
you want this thing, I'm going to have to sign it. So
I know you can sign it anyhow, but
read
it so that you are aware of what you're getting yourself into, and you'll be able to see if there are ways that you can work around and get around some of the fees that might be there because they may be conditional fees.
Right, because I know that there's one particular one that people sometimes don't realize that you can be charged a fee for closing early.
Oh,
Exactly. And that's actually in the contract. So
Yes.
many times,
Yes.
if you just read the contract, you would see if you give us a month's notice, you don't have to pay that fee. But if you didn't read the contract and you just pay early, you then see another charge and you're like,
Where did this come from?
read the contract. Highlight the areas that you do not understand so that you can then ask the questions. What does this mean for me? I'm not quite sure what, am I interpreting this correctly? Do not be embarrassed. I can't emphasize that enough. Do not be embarrassed because the two persons sitting in the room, you're the novice, this person's the financial professional. The same way that you will go to a mechanic and you're not expected to know everything that's wrong with your car, you go to a doctor, you're not expected to know.
That's why they're there.
That's why they're there. Do not be embarrassed because it's financial, because you did not go and be trained, you're not a professional, you're not expected to know these things. So don't be embarrassed to ask. Do not feel as though there's too dumb a question.
Will asking make any difference?
It might bring clarity.
To yourself, but it won't change anything.
It might not change. You might be able to negotiate some terms. There are many times when if you ask a particular question, as we would have been discussing, you might realize, but wait a minute, based on what I am seeing, I actually fit the requirements for a different type of loan that might have different interest rates or anything else. So if you ask these questions, you might realize that you qualify for something else. You might have factors that can help influence your bringing down your interest rate or your repayment terms. Ask the questions.
Ask a question.
Do your homework. I beg of you to do your homework and don't just go to one source for your financial needs. You ask multiple sources so that you can compare and see what best works for you. That is so important.
Makes good sense. But you have to acknowledge, I mean, if you're getting a loan, it's going to cost you more because
Yeah.
there's the convenience of getting all the money that you want for waiting to save it month by month or week by
Agreed.
week is going to cost you a little more. But you should
But
at
at
least be
least
aware.
Secured.
At least though you see it, because like in the advertisements and so on, they will show you that this is what you will end up paying
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
a certain amount of time, you know. But one of the things, can you explain the balloon payment with like vehicles, like when you get them, what the Americans call on lease?
Yeah.
That agreement, that at the end of it, that you still have a balloon payment. What
That
exactly is
That's
that?
yeah, one big payment that you have to
Sucks.
make. You again, if you don't understand the terms, ask the question, because you may have this very low payment throughout the life of the loan, and then at the very end, you have this massive payment to make that you are not financially prepared for. But the idea is, if you've had these low payments, it freed up your income, that you're able to do other things with it, that you can then be in a better position to make this large payment at the end. There's also insurance that some persons may not consider, where if you have a critical illness or something like that happens, the balance of the
Is
for a
covered.
credit card will be covered. So those are other, but that's an additional amount that you opt to pay. So
Yeah.
it's a risk. At the end of the day, you take it or you leave it. And if you leave it and you run into the difficulty, you must have
Yeah.
another plan as to how you're going to manage if something had to happen.
Let's talk about paying down the loan balance. That is important. The best way to do it. I've always heard pay something to that principal.
Yes. When we're talking about the principal and interest, so the payment that you're going to make each month, let's say it's $100, that has a component of principal and interest. So if you're going to pay any extra, make sure you inform the financial institution, because some may put it to the interest. Make sure that it goes to the principal. Make sure those instructions are clear. When it goes to the principal, that means that the interest that you're going to be paying is going to be a lot less over time, because instead of paying interest on $1,000,
Reducing
you're now paying interest on $900. So the math is very simple. Interest on less money means less interest. So you want to, if at all possible, even if it's just a little bit extra, usually for myself, when I get any extra, I put it on the loan, because I want to see that balance come down. And many of these spreadsheets, including the one that I shared, will show you how much you actually save overall when you make these additional payments, so you can actually see the number growing as you make these additional payments. And I know that's not in everybody's financial capacity, but if you do get any kind of bonus, extra income, and you decide that you want to splurge it's a consideration that you can make to
Right.
decide, I am going to be financially responsible and use this additional money to pay down my loan balance.
Right.
That sounds good. What other considerations so that we can be more responsible going into the new year? And I mean really responsible, so that we can let it follow through for a little bit more wealth in 2020.
One of the things I really wanted to talk about, because I know hopefully we are climbing out of the financially difficult period, but there's also the risk that you lose your job and you still have this massive loan to pay off, especially if it's a mortgage, because a mortgage is a very long-term commitment. And over that period of time, you cannot always guarantee what your financial circumstances will be like. The best course of action, I know many persons run from this, is to contact the financial institution, because they will be able to work out an alternative plan for you that would help you to be able to see how you're going to manage in this period until you can find work again. But if you do not contact them and you allow the payments to accumulate and to rack up, and the interest is racking up on that, and then there's often late payment fees and the emotional stress of them calling you, trying to find out where the money is. You don't want that happening, because it's not just the financial strain, but the mental strain of having to manage not only that, I'm sure you have many other things that are piling up. So the best course of action is to call the financial institution, let them know your circumstances, come in, have a meeting, and see what can be done. And you'll be very surprised. Majority of them will work with you. I can't say everybody will do the same thing, but they will work with you because they prefer to know what's going on up front. And some of them even might hold off on the interest until you can be able to get yourself back in order. They might have a reduced payment plan. They will put something in place because it's in both parties' interest to have you in a position where you can pay again in the long run. So have the conversation, because none of that can happen if you hide and try to see what can happen, because most of the time, many people can't get back a job in a short space of time.
So that is looking at the character of your credit history as well.
Yes.
All that.
So if you have a history of always paying on time and being a good credit risk, you will likely be able to have a better negotiation than some person who's had a spotty history. This is why, again, it's so important to make your payments on time. If you know you don't have a good memory, you can set up a standing order where it's automatically deducted from your salary. Even better, before you even realize it's there to spend, have it deducted, and develop that history of being a good credit risk. It's very important, especially when you're dealing with long-term
How
loans.
does it work in Barbados? You know, when you see things like Credit Karma and all that in the U.S., they have 3-digit scores. How does it rate here? Is it a 1 to?
No, many institutions will actually just ask you for your history and bring in proof. So if you say that you've made this salary over the last X amount of periods, they may ask you to bring the last 2 or 3 pay slips. They might ask you for your bank history, so you might have to bring your credit card statements, your bank statements, any other statements that you have for funds that you have available to prove that you can pay back or that you have the income that you're saying that you have. And they will ask you general questions where they might have to depend on your word, where if you say you have a vehicle that's worth 50, they will take your word for it.
So don't overextend yourself. Be
Yes,
honest and
be
real
honest.
with yourself.
Be very honest.
Merry
Claus,
Christmas,
thank you.
Crystal.
Yeah, have a good
Crystal
one.
Claus.
Thank you.
Oh,
And
you like it?
I love it.
I would like to encourage everyone in this Christmas season, please, if you can, remember to give generously to those who do not have. Put it in your budget. Please put it in your budget. Even if you miss Christmas, January, the year of January is a very hard year. People need your help. They really do.
Well said. Thank you so much, Crystal.
so much, Crystal.
And thanks to the Republic Bank as well.
Managing those pennies. Brought to you with the good wishes of Republic Bank. We're the one for you.